So for the last few weeks, I have been doing interviews with people who went through Unity's youth programs as children. And I've been interviewing them for this video project. And I have been amazingly inspired by the adults that they have become. And I mean, I'm not surprised. I grew up in these programs as well, but it is amazing to see how kind and powerful and joyful and loving these folks are. And they attribute that in part to those experiences as youth, which of course is why we're doing the video. But it reminded me even more so of who I am and where I came from. Now, most of us have moved away from the place that we first called home. And eventually, we've probably had the experience of returning to that place and seeing the place with different eyes. And reflecting on my experiences and speaking with the others who've had these experiences, I do see with new eyes. And the eyes I look at some of these experiences with, I can see these deep, meaningful seeds that were sown. I can see, the bigger picture of things that I, of course, would not have had words for when I was 7 or 14. Some people have idyllic childhoods, and for others, it was the worst part of their life. But I think for most of us, we fall somewhere in between. And so today's theme is return. And I'm not saying we return to the hurtful parts, but to reflect on the quiet knowings. Most people I've talked to can tell a story about a time when they remembered something where they came from, when something became clear, when they felt connected. They can remember often an experience in nature. When you were the most you, even if you still had lots of wisdom to come. Not saying we don't want to keep that. And sometimes these moments are in our early years, and sometimes these moments of clarity and really remembering, they came in our 20s or later. But what's important is the remembering and the returning. I think much of our spiritual journey is about coming back to knowing our interconnectedness with each other and all that is. In meditation, we realize this deepest truth. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, he spoke of that was a very, it was the most important part of meditation. All the rest of it was preparation. Because in meditation, you would come to realization. Realization was having the clarity, knowing of our interconnectedness, of the oneness. And he would do this, sit in meditation for this clarity about things, even if it took all night. Jesus told his followers not to get so caught up in the worldly stuff. He said, come back to caring for another, including each other. He said, come back, love one another. And this doesn't mean that we can't have goals or want to achieve or do big things or have adventures. Hey, somebody was bankrolling Jesus the Wanderer. It takes a lot of resources for someone to be a poor wanderer. I remember anecdotes about that, about Gandhi too. I mean, like, somebody had to bankroll this, right? But I think that for me, that's what is coming back to these interviews I did. It's what about the drive? What is the driver of the desires? Is it to tick a box or be better than someone? Or is it to make the world a better place? That's what I saw in these interviews. These, young people are really driven by a desire for service and continuing to make the world a better place and helping people live from knowing their truth. Isn't that amazing? So returning to a place, so that's returning to yourself, returning to a place that is meaningful to us can be a time of connection and healing and insight. Sometimes we find we don't fit. Sometimes we find that the ways we've both grown make it even better. Returning to who we really are sometimes requires excavation. It is a time of healing and insight. One of my mentors once said, we can heal and release the painful parts of our past, allowing them to never darken our psyche's door again. Not to deny that they ever existed, but just really let that just be clean. Like, you probably don't remember your trip to the grocery store from 3 weeks ago because it was just not important. And she said, even though we can clear that, the emotional part of whatever those pains are, we can retain and embrace the learnings and the wisdom. We don't have to we don't have to lose that part when we lose the connection when we let go of the painful part. I thought this was an amazingly powerful idea and one for great healing. We get to keep the wisdom even as we come back to the truth of who we are. So in returning, we release the experiences, the ideas, the stories that we might have told, that may have been told to us, that we were less than, that we were not enough, we were unworthy, we were dirty, separate, dumb. We don't need any of those stories to tell the story of our triumph. We can just keep the wisdom. What would that be like? Just return to the core of you that knew who you were when you arrived. Because your wisdom, your worth, your joy, your enoughness, your divinity, it's baked in. And it was there at the beginning. And that, our wisdom, our worth, our joy, our enoughness, our divinity, etc., etc., etc. So that is what we return.